projects, we know Dr. Keshavanand Prabhu, and he has conducted extensive research and authored many books in the field of science and spirituality for the last 20 years. For decoding the Sanskrit sutras of the Vedas and Bhagavad Gita, he studied Sanskrit and Western Indian philosophies. In addition, he learned Bengali, Gujarati, Marathi, Kannada to know other traditions. Prabhu is very well versed, and be prepared to ask some questions, and his lectures actually touch the heart of the audience.
Okay, so we are discussing the topic, the importance of hearing.
Yes, thank you.
That topic we are discussing. So, anyway, before that, let me just talk about this system. Om Jnanatamurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Om Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Preshkaya Vishnu Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Bhagavan Okay, so when we discuss about the importance of hearing, it's important to understand that our process of devotion is Shravanam and Kirtan. That's our process. Translate. So our process is Shravanam and Kirtanam. So that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Param Vijate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. That's the idea. The Sang means Shravanam. In fact, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, Shravan Bina Kirtan Nayan. He said, without Shravanam, there is no Kirtanam. And of course, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in all his works, he gave a lot of importance to hearing, to Shravanam. I mean to say, he used to lecture for 8 hours, 9 hours at a stretch. In Gaudiya Math, there was no restrictions to chant, minimum 16 rounds. Full-time devotees were chanting as many rounds as possible and doing service and hearing. That was very important. Baladev Vidyabhushan, he also writes that Shravanam is more important than Kirtanam. That's quite astonishing, a revelation. But Baladev Vidyabhushan adds there, although Mahaprabhu's moment is Kirtanam, chanting of Hare Krishna. That's a moment all about. Prabhupada said Hare Krishna chanting, that's a backbone of a society. That's the foundation of society. But Baladev Vidyabhushan writes Shravanam. Why? He adds there that in conditioned stage, hearing becomes more important than Kirtan. Because if you don't hear from a proper source, if you don't hear a proper content, and if you don't know how to hear and what to hear, then you'll not be able to chant properly. Proper chanting means you're not able to either focus on chanting or your chanting will not be pleasing to Krishna. That's the idea. So, Srila Prabhupada also in Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, he mentions that Shravanam is very important. Prabhupada also states, exact reference of Prabhupada. Prabhupada states in that Prabhupada that Shravanam is more important than Kirtan. So, of course, we understand that Shravanam leads to Kirtanam. That is why Shravanam is more important to keep for more than Kirtanam. So just like we say, Guru helps us to lead our way to Krishna. That is why sometimes in scriptures it is said Guru is more important than Krishna. In fact, Krishna himself says, anybody who worships me is not my devotee. Anybody who worships my devotee, he is my devotee. Krishna has said in Agni Purana. So does that mean devotees of Krishna become more superior than Krishna? No, technically it's not like that. Krishna is supreme, but as far as we are concerned, because we find a way to Krishna through devotees, for us, devotees become more important than Krishna. So in that sense, Shravanam becomes more important than Kirtanam because it leads our way to a proper Kirtanam. You see. So now, when we talk about Shravanam, Prabhu, you have to mute somebody. People are muted there. So when we talk about Shravanam, there are 4 questions we have to address when this topic of Shravanam hearing is there. Now, number 1 question is how to hear. How we should hear. I say people are hearing. So even a dog can hear. If a dog attends a lecture, even a dog can hear, but he's not able to understand anything. So how to hear and whom to hear, what to hear, and the 4th question is the role of hearing in relationship to Kirtan. These are the 4 questions which I want to discuss today regarding Shravanam. How to hear, whom to hear, what to hear, and the role of hearing in relationship to Kirtan. That's the point. That's okay. So, fine. So, let's start with the first question. How to hear? Now, how to hear? You might be surprised. I mean, how to hear? I mean, to say what? Just sit and hear. That's all. That's the point there. How to hear? Just sit and hear. There is a problem if you just put it like that. Because there's so many people hearing, but everybody is grasping according to his or her own understanding. Shukdev Goswami, he was preaching, and there was Parikshit Maharaj, there was Narada, Devalo, Vyasa, great rishis attended. Then there were yogis and jnanis. Everybody was hearing according to their own consciousness level, and everybody understood at a different level. So how to hear is very important. In fact, in Srimad Bhagavad Mahatma, it is said there was this devotee, Dundukari, and he was hearing Bhagavad Katha. Everybody else was hearing, but after the Katha was over, a plane came from Vaikuntha to take Dundukari, and just him and only him, and no one else. So he asked, well, everybody heard Bhagavad Katha, so why only me? Why not everybody? The answer was because you were hearing and everyone else were attending. They were not hearing. That's the idea. So how to hear is very important. So Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam gives us some hint how to hear. Now from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, there's this verse, 4th chapter, 34th verse. What's that verse? Tad viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena seva upakdekshanti te jnanam jnanena sattva darshana. This is how to hear. Now, how to hear? Tad viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena seva. When you are hearing, there are 3 conditions which has to be met if you want to understand what you're hearing. So please can you just give me a moment. So 3 conditions that have to be met. The first condition is that vidhi pranipatena. Now, pranipat means what the proper pranipat? Obeisances. I think so. Pranipat means obeisances. So how to have pranipatena? Pranipatena means you have to hear in a surrendered mood, not in a challenging mood. That's what Prabhupada writes. Don't hear in a challenging mood. In other words, don't hear. Translate. So
by approaching a spiritual master.
By approaching a spiritual master. Technically, pranipatena means in a surrendered attitude. Pranipat. So how to hear in a surrendered attitude? In other words, not in a challenging mood, by approaching a spiritual master. Anybody you are hearing, you have to understand he is my master and I am a disciple. It's not that you have to challenge and you have to. You can ask questions, which is in the next word, pariprashnena. But you should not always challenge and doubt. Then you will not understand anything. So the first condition is, ask in a submissive attitude. That's the whole idea. Hear in a submissive attitude. पीछे बोलना पड़ेगा. Go back. So that's the first point, submissive attitude. In other words, when we hear somebody, we are not allowed to censure. Censure. We are not allowed to choose whatever we like and leave whatever we don't like. That's not the idea. When you hear somebody, you should hear everything. If you understand, that's very good. If you don't understand, try to understand. Don't leave it out. Otherwise, you don't get the whole message of what is being spoken. That's the first condition. Second is pariprashnena. Well, you can ask questions. When you are hearing, it's very important to have questions in your mind. It is said, it is said by someone, if you don't have questions in your mind after hearing, this means only 2 things. Either you have understood everything or you have understood nothing. That's what it said. It's mostly the second option. You've understood nothing, because if you've understood everything, that's not possible. Because if you've understood everything, then this means you are at the same level as the speaker, and that's not possible. You can't understand everything, because the speaker is way above than people who are hearing. Otherwise, if the speaker is not way above than the people who are hearing, then what's the point of hearing the speaker? That's another question. Why should we hear to somebody who knows less than us? What's the point? It's a waste of time, in general. And then unless you want to inspire him, and that's another thing. So that's the second thing. Questions. Good hearing will produce good questions. That's a sign of good hearing. That's a sign of good hearing. Good hearing produces good questions. And bad hearing produces either no questions, or bad hearing produces bad questions. You hear the full discourse and then ask, you hear the whole Ramayana and then ask question, Sita is the father of whom? This is a bad question. It's a nonsense question. Sita is whose father? So that's the whole point there. Good hearing produces good questions. Pariprashnena. And then the third point is sevaya. So good hearing, if you hear in a proper consciousness, it will inspire you to serve. A bad hearing leads to a scholastic, if you understand, leads to a scholastic, academic, academic ethos. It produces. If you hear and you become a scholar and you don't like to serve, then it's not hearing in a proper consciousness. So just sit. So there are 3 conditions how to hear. So the first condition is submissively. Second condition is good questions. And third condition is it should inspire to serve. That's the whole idea. So that's how you have to hear. Okay. This is the first question, how to hear. Second question is whom to hear. So there is a Srimad Bhagavatam verse, 11th canto, 3rd chapter, 21st verse, 11.3.21, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna speaking. Tasmad gurum prapadye jigyasu shriyottamam, then shabde parichanisnatam, brahmani upashamashram. This verse informs us whom to hear. Now this is very important, especially in the age of YouTube and internet. Everybody is hearing to everyone else, and sometimes people are becoming confused, and they don't. Sometimes they're hearing so many things, and then they are saying what to follow, what not to follow, who is right, who is wrong. This verse informs us whom to hear. There are 3 qualifications of a person whom you are hearing. Tasmad gurum prapadya jigyasu shriyottamam. It speaks about the person whom to hear. It speaks about guru. So guru is a person whom you are hearing. Anybody whom you hear, he is your guru. In one sense, maybe not Diksha Guru, maybe Shiksha Guru, or maybe Pradrashak Guru, whatever it is, they are your master because you want to hear them and you want to follow them. Right? So, what's the qualification to hear? Is that person should. Shabda means scripture. He should know philosophy. He should speak from scriptures. He should quote from scriptures. He should not speak anything from his mind. He should not speak stories only from here and there. And he should not just do entertainment. That's not the person we want to hear. It's not a matter of what you like. It's a matter of what will benefit you. So that person should be expert in scriptures. Shastra Nipun, that's what Chaitanya Charitamrita says. And not just an expert in scriptures, but also expert in explaining scriptures. That's also called Shabda. Explaining scriptures. In fact, sorry. So explaining scriptures means pare, Shabda pare. The next word pare means expert in explaining scriptures. So pare ideally means pare means realizations. Let's go behind my translation in Hindi. So pare means explaining scriptures. So Hindi So Shabda pare. Pare means realizations. Pare means realizations. Am I right? So the person whom I am hearing, he should not only just know scriptures, but he should be also realized in scriptures. But that what does realization in scripture means? Prabhupada writes in one of his letters, actually Srimad Bhagavatam, what he writes, realization means practical explanation. Prabhupada writes there. Any person who is realized, he will be able to explain you. If you are not realized, you will not be able to explain. That's how you know that that person is realized. Otherwise, everybody can say, I am realized. But then how do you know? Simply ask him. And if he's able to explain you nicely, that means realization. He has applied in his life. So that's the second qualification, whom to hear. Whom to hear. The first is Shabde. That person should be expert in scriptures, teacher of philosophy. Second is he should be able to explain you properly. The concept, the most difficult concept in the most simple way. That person you want to be. And the third qualification is Shabde Parecha Nishnatam Brahmani Upashamashrayam. Upashamashrayam. That person whom you are hearing, he should have detachment from this material world. If he is attached to this material world, his whole talk, his whole speech is poisoned by mundane attachments. And Prabhupada says, so it's just like sarpachishta, just like milk touching serpent touching the milk with his poison lips. So like that. So three things you should have in your mind when you are hearing somebody. Please look up to this, because we are hearing so many people on YouTube and outside ISKCON, whatever it is. Don't hear everybody. You'll be confused. Let's see. The person should be talking through scriptures. The person should be able to explain it through scriptures, and he should have detachment in his life and in his actions. Of course, you can't see his actions on internet, but through his words, you can understand whether that person is detached or attached. It reflects in his words. All the emotions reflect in the words of the speaker. Okay, so this is whom to hear. And this third question is what to hear. What to hear? Now, this is interesting question. What to hear? I mean to say what to hear. To hear Krishna conscious philosophy, that's all. No, what to hear? You have to have a balanced approach in here. What to hear? You have to hear philosophy and pastimes, both. By pastimes, I don't mean you have to hear about Radha Krishna swinging on a swing and Krishna running behind cows. No, that's not the point. You can hear that, but the pastimes, I mean, you have to hear about, of course, the pastime of Govardhan, lifting Govardhan hill, killing Putana, but in a very philosophical way, not in a sentimental way. That's the idea, and that's why I'm saying you have to hear both philosophy and pastimes. So when it comes to philosophy, of course, we are hearing Bhakti Sandra Saraswati Thakur says, Prabhupada says, we have to have philosophy at the level of Sambandha more than philosophy at the level of Abhidhaya and Prayojan. That will, so we have the Sambandha with Prayojan. So we have to have philosophy more at the level of Sambandha to actually make our foundations concrete and strong, because the foundation of Bhakti is through Sambandha. So that's very, very important. Again and again, we have to hear philosophy that helps us to convince us we are servants of Krishna. This material world is nonsense and crazy and not fit to live in. That's the whole idea. Krishna is the supreme master. This is the level we have to hear. This is the level what Prabhupada writes in the books at large to help us create our foundations of devotion very strong and solid. And when we talk about pastimes, in pastimes we have to hear the pastimes of Krishna and devotees, both. For example, Prabhupada's Leela Amrit and Krishna work. So both pastimes we must be hearing. Pastime of saints and Krishna, so like that. And when we talk about pastimes of Krishna, there are two things we have to keep in mind. So this verse, Bhagavad Gita 10.9, Machit Malkata Prana, Bodhyanta Parasparam, Katyantasya Mam Nityam, Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. Now there's a point there. Krishna says you have to hear about Krishna. How? Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. Tushyanti means you have to hear Aishwarya of Krishna. Ramanti means you have to hear Madhurya of Krishna. Because the greatness of Krishna will give you satisfaction and peace, and the sweetness of Krishna will give you enjoyment. So Tushyanti Ramanti, you have to hear both aspects of Krishna's pastimes. The greatness of Krishna and the sweetness of Krishna, both aspects. So this is what we have to hear. And the last point is the role of hearing in Kirtanam. That's very important. So the role of hearing in Kirtanam is, you see, hearing, we hear, but at the same time, I mean to say, you can ask, what's the point of hearing? How does hearing help Kirtanam? What's the scientific take behind that? So what hearing does? Hearing gives satisfaction in Kirtanam. That's the link between hearing and Kirtanam. Shravanam gives tushti to Kirtanam. There's a technical word used, tushti. By hearing, you will find satisfaction in Kirtanam. If you don't hear from a proper source, if you don't hear the proper content or in a proper consciousness, as I told, if you don't know whom to hear, what to hear, how to hear, and you simply hear day and night, just putting YouTube and that's it, and hearing. Then what happens is, then you chant and you get frustrated in chanting. You will not get satisfaction in chanting. The test of good hearing is satisfaction in chanting. If you get satisfaction in chanting, so mark my words. I'm not saying if you get happiness in chanting, if you get bliss in chanting. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Happiness and bliss in chanting, anybody can get. So even a dog can get. Even a neophyte can get. So many new people come, they chant and they feel so blissful. But he's a neophyte. That's not the point. Satisfaction in chanting. So when you chant, you'll become completely satisfied that this is what I want to do in life. This is life. There's nothing else besides chanting the holy name of God. That's the idea. That cannot be had in a neophyte stage. It needs naturality. And if that's happening, that means your hearing is good. So you can go the reverse way also, reverse engineering. If you want to know that whether your hearing is good, if you're getting satisfied in chanting, that means your hearing is good. So you cannot get satisfied in chanting. You cannot get tushti in Kirtanam if you don't know what to hear, how to hear, and whom to hear. You will become frustrated. You will get sleepy. Your mind will not focus on the holy names. You will never become satisfied. It cannot be. It cannot happen. It cannot happen that you press accelerator of the car and the car doesn't move. It will move if you press the accelerator. It is cause and effect, am I right? So it cannot happen that you push somebody and nothing happens. If you push, you'll go behind. So similarly, if it is good hearing, then automatically leads to satisfaction and focus and concentration in chanting. Automatically. And if you're getting satisfied in chanting, that means your hearing is good. So that's how it goes. That's a relationship between Kirtanam and Shravanam. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never said, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Kirtanam. That's not what he said. He said, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So Sankirtanam He says, all glories to Sankirtan, all glories to Sang means Shravanam and Kirtanam means Kirtanam. All glories to Shravanam and Kirtanam, not just Kirtanam. Chaitanya has never said that. So that's a very important point to understand. Paramahite Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So please take care. Always try to hear. That is why Sukadeva Goswami writes in Srimad Bhagavatam, Pibatam Bhagavatam Asamalayam. Drink the nectarian ocean of Srimad Bhagavatam. By drink means drink through your ears. That's the idea. We should know how to drink through your ears. Vishwachakra Thakur says, pour buckets of Hari Katha in your ears. And then your consciousness will rise. Otherwise it will fall down. So you have to hear. Hearing or reading, it's one of the same. It's, yeah, in one sense it's same. Hearing and reading. But in another sense, I mean to say hearing or reading, you're getting information and thoughts. But in another sense, if you want to fine tune, hearing is far superior to reading, because in reading, you are the only person there who is actually taking information. But in hearing, I'm actually, the speaker is forcing information. He's actually giving you information in a proper tailored way, in the way you can understand, right? So hearing is very important. So don't be lazy in hearing, and at the same time be very cautious and intelligent in hearing. What to hear, whom to hear, and how to hear. That's very, very important when it comes to Shravanam, in the role of Shravanam in devotion. In fact, Shravanam is the first limb of devotion, am I right? Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Archanam Mandaram Dasyam, Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam. Out of 9 limbs of devotion, Shravanam is the first limb. Out of 9 limbs of devotion, Shravanam is the first limb of devotion. Why the first limb? Because it's the most important. That's why it's first. It's not the second. First is first. That's how it goes. In conditioned stage. And even in liberated stage, Shravanam again is very important. That's why Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Krishna Bhakti Jan Mool Hoy Sadhu Sang. Then Krishna Prem Pune Hoy Deho Hoy Pune Mukhyam. So Sadhu Sang is the most important. Sadhu Sang is very important. It gives birth to Krishna Bhakti. And even after having love of God, still Sadhu Sang is important. In other words, Sadhu Sang means Shravanam. So from Shravanam, Bhakti is born. And even after getting love of God, still Shravanam is important. But there's a difference between the two Shravanam. Before love of God, in our state, sadhak, Shravanam helps us to do proper kirtan. But after we attain love of God, Shravanam Shravanam excites kirtan. Shravanam gives ruchi in kirtan. Ruchi, or maybe no, not exactly ruchi. But Shravana excites kirtan. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to hear from Sarup Damodar Ramananda entire night. It excites the soul to actually chant the holy names of God. So there's a difference between Shravanam. Shravanam also comes in different varieties. In conditional stage, it is to clear our concepts. And in liberated stage, Shravanam is to produce joy in the soul. So there's a difference between Shravanam in the both stages. And also, now you might ask, how does Shravanam makes our concepts clear? How does it happen? Well, Shravanam leads to Mananam. That's what scripture says. Chandogya Upanishad says, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. So good hearing leads to what happens is when you hear from proper source and you know how to hear and what to hear, it slowly activates your mind, and it actually leads you to another stage of which is called as contemplation, mananam. Your mind starts thinking about all these concepts and linking the concepts. That's the whole idea. If you keep hearing, and what happens is all the concepts, so when you keep on hearing, there are so many concepts. Slowly the concepts will start linking to each other. So there will be a chain link will be formed, and everything will be linked to everything else. And that's how you will, your mind will start building a structure of concepts. And this is what Shravanam leads to, Mananam, contemplation. And that is why sometimes it's also very important to contemplate on what you have heard. It's not that you keep on hearing. That's also not a good strategy. Just give rest and sometimes do not hear and contemplate on what you have heard. That's also very important, at least in this age of technology, right? So give yourself time to contemplate. So what happens is, if you have good hearing, automatically mind will start contemplating. Your mind will form a practice of contemplating while walking, while sitting. You don't need to give yourself extra time. Your mind will start working. And when these concepts mind will get habit of linking concepts. And the next stage is nididhyasana. Nididhyasana means the mind will start thinking how to apply these concepts in your life. Then application will spontaneously follow. So Shravanam, that's how Shravanam leads to clarification of concepts. Because when you apply what you have heard, then you have truly understood what you have heard. Unless you don't apply, you will never understand what you have heard. You might have an intellectual understanding, but you will not have a practical understanding. So that is why Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Shravanam is complete when it leads to Nididhyasanam, practical application. Otherwise, Shravanam is incomplete. That is why this is also one classification of Shravanam. Complete Shravanam and incomplete Shravanam. Complete hearing and incomplete hearing. This is another classification. So this is all about Shravanam in a nutshell. Anybody wants to ask some questions, we can ask. I'll finish it.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's a wonderful class. And actually, this I feel this way that this is not only good for religious settings, this is good for each and every settings. Anyone who wants to learn something has to know how to hear and what to hear and how to retain it. Thank you, Prabhu, for giving a wonderful class. And this is a very in-depth subject, I would say. And you made it very clear and easy for us to understand. One question I have is, satisfaction in chanting means what? Someone wrote on the chat. So what is the meaning of satisfaction in chanting?
Yeah, I just alluded to that. But anyway, I'll just explain it. You see the point. Generally, devotees think that my chanting is good when I feel happy in chanting or bliss in chanting. Devotees think, okay, today my chanting is very nice because I felt a lot of bliss. I felt a lot of happiness. So, but that's a wrong way to judge your chanting. That's a wrong way, because happiness and bliss in chanting can be very confusing. It can be a mental phenomenon. Just the mind. I mean to say, because why? Because I explained, because even a neophyte, they get happiness and bliss in chanting. So you remember yourself when you were new in Krishna consciousness, we started chanting and we felt so happy, and that's why we continue chanting. So if a neophyte can feel happiness and bliss in chanting, and if a mature devotee can feel happiness and bliss in chanting, then that's a problematic situation, because that means bliss and happiness in chanting. By that only we cannot judge whether we are advancing or not advancing. We might be still on neophyte platform and yet we'll be feeling bliss and happiness. So then what do you do? So the only symptom of how do you know chanting is good? When you get satisfaction in chanting. And that's a very different thing. Now, what do you mean by satisfaction? By satisfaction, we mean two things. First is peace. Peace of mind. And not happiness of mind. It's peace of mind which is important. So, peace of mind means when your mind is not disturbed by unwanted thoughts. Your mind is settled on the holy names of Krishna. It's not running here and there in unnecessary thoughts. So that's the first component of satisfaction, peace. An undisturbed mind. From external causes and internal causes. From external causes, external disturbances, heat, cold, hunger, thirst, whatever it is. And internal disturbances, your internal evil thoughts. The mind is at peace now. And the second thing in satisfaction is absolute conviction that so when the devotee is chanting, he will have absolute conviction that this is life, chanting of holy names. Except chanting of holy names, every activity in this material world is useless, has no profit, has absolutely of no use, it's nonsense. Life is meant to chant the holy names, that's all. And if I can chant till eternity, still it will be less. That kind of thought. So that these two components are there in satisfaction. That means satisfaction, peace of mind and absolute conviction. When this is happening while chanting, then that means you're satisfied while chanting. Then that means your chanting is good. Otherwise, you cannot say your chanting is good if you're simply feeling bliss and happiness. That's not how we judge good chanting. So that means satisfaction in chanting.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nicely answered. And I like to reiterate the 2 points we have said, that satisfaction in chanting is number one, peace of mind, and number two, absolute conviction. So those are two in-depth points. If we can take at least this answer with us today, I think our life will be happier than what we are thinking, and it will be meaningful. I like this second part, Prabhu, absolute conviction that life is meant for chanting only. Is that you meant?
Yeah.
I like this part. The second part, I like both the parts, but this part is better to understand that life is meant for chanting. Thank you, Prabhu, for actually enlightening us with these 2 points. We have been chanting. We are doing the same thing. All of us here today, we are chanting every day. Probably many of us never thought that life is meant for chanting only. Thank you, Prabhu. I see. Okay, another question I see from the same devotee said that, and we can reach to this stage only by good hearing. Is it right?
Yes. Yeah. That's the whole lecture. Yeah, you're right.
So whenever I attend your classes, I learn something very special. And that's the specialty because you are the guru. So nice. I remember another class. I don't know if you remember that you mentioned that this is the feeling of separations from God. That's why that's right. You remember that one?
Yeah.
So that I can't forget. Whenever I stand in front of Radha Krishna, I remember you told me that this is the feeling of separation, not to just essay or not to go to, yes, we want to go to Goloka Vrindavan, we want to meet Sri Krishna, but the feeling of separation will take us there. So if I know how to feel it, like Gauranga Prabhu did, Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for attending the class. Still, we have 10 minutes. If anyone has any question.
Just one question here, Prabhu.
Sure, go ahead, Prabhu. Please.
Thanks for your lecture. I can really relate to it. But you mentioned earlier that philosophy and pastime, right? Whenever I hear Krishna's pastime, what's the focal point of philosophy I'm looking for? And how do I find that? Because sometimes I do, right? But most of the pastimes I don't. So what philosophical point I'm looking for any pastime? And could you give me an example? Like, how do I look for it? What point am I searching for?
Okay, that's a good question, actually. Very good question. You see the point. First point you have to understand is that what is philosophy and what is pastime all about? Now, pastimes is all about love between Krishna and his devotees. That's what his pastimes are all about. Pastimes is, especially when it comes to pastimes of Krishna and pastimes of God. It's all about love, dealings between Krishna and his devotees. It's not just stories we are looking for. That's very essential for me to understand. Now, when we talk about love, so the whole point is in pastimes, we are actually trying to understand and grasp and imbibe the love between Krishna and his devotees, that relationship. Why? So that we can develop our own relationship. So, but the whole point is, how do you understand that love? That's the whole point, because what do you do? How do you understand that love? How do you get that love from that pastime, from there to here in your heart? The language of love is philosophy. That is very important point. The language of love is philosophy and Krishna consciousness. They are not two separate things. It's not that we read philosophy and then we get love. Of course, people in Vrindavan, all these sahijyas and sentimental people, they will like to put it not as what I am speaking. They will say, well, philosophy is philosophy, love is love. And for them, if you want to attain love, leave philosophy. Go beyond philosophy. That's what they will say. But Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they like to put it as that philosophy and love are inseparable. They are two sides of the same coin. Actually, that's not also good analogy. Philosophy and love is one and the same thing. Or let us put it technically, philosophy is a language. So if you want to decode love, then you need philosophy. And then you can get it in your heart. It's like, for example, I'm speaking on internet and my speech is converted by this device, smartphone, into electrical signals. And the electrical signals go to satellite, and then from satellite it comes to your phone. And your smartphone converts that electrical signals back into speech. And then through speaker, you can hear my voice. Is it like that? So electrical signals and my speech, what's the relationship? Actually, my speech is electrical signals in the pathway. They're actually not different. So similarly, philosophy and love is the same thing. When you read pastimes, you're trying to search, you're trying to focus on the love between Krishna and devotees, and that love gets decoded into philosophy. Just like my speech is getting decoded into electrical signals. And then philosophy comes into your ears, just like electrical signals come to your smartphone. And then philosophy is again changed into love in your heart. Just like electrical signals will again be changed into voice in your smartphone. So philosophy is a language of love. Please remember this. So what are you looking for in the pastimes, in Krishna's pastimes? What is the focal point? What philosophy you're looking for? Now that's the whole point. If we understand philosophy, love is philosophy, language of love is philosophy, then what happens is when we hear about relationship of Krishna and gopis, Yashodama and Krishna and his friends, we will try to see the whole, every action, every relationship in a philosophical way. And that, how to do that? So how to decode love into philosophy? For that, the science is the nectar of devotion. So if you read Nectar of Devotion, you get trained to actually decode love into philosophy. And that's what Rupa Goswami says. Rupa Goswami says, Vishai, Ashray. There are two things, subject and object. And then in Vishai you have Uddipan, the things which excites the devotion of the Ashray. And then you have all these technical things are there, nectar of devotion, if you read. And then your Satvik Bhav, Anubhav, Vichari Bhav, all these things have to be learned when this relationship happens. And that's why Rupa Goswami wrote the book Nectar of Devotion, by the way. So if we read Nectar of Devotion nicely, then we will be able to understand what we are looking for there. Otherwise, we will never understand what kind of philosophy we are looking at. So, for example, when we're reading about gopis and Krishna, so we know that in Ras Leela, who is Vishai? Krishna is Vishai. Who is Ashray? Gopis are Ashray. And then in Krishna, what is Uddipan in Ras Leela? Uddipan is Krishna's lips, Krishna's flute, especially Krishna's chest. We know that. And then in Ashray, then there are components. Satvik Bhav, Anubhav, gopis are feeling not Satvik Bhav, Anubhav, Vichari Bhav, they are feeling Mahabhav, the technical symptoms of Mahabhav. So when you are reading this pastime, so it's not that you are reading and then you are analyzing it. No, it goes simultaneously. And your mind is trained by reading Nectar of Devotion. As you're reading, your mind is decoding that whole pastime, that whole love into philosophy. And then you can transfer that love from the pages of Bhagavatam into your heart through philosophy. So please read Nectar of Devotion and get trained in all these things. You have to first get hold of this terminology of Nectar of Devotion. First, you have to get these terms. What is Uddipan? What is Vishnu? What is Ashray? And then in Vishnu, what is that? Uddipan, and one more thing is there. No? I'm just forgetting these terms. What is Bhav? What is Mahabhav? Anubhav? Vichari Bhav? Exactly, you have to get a very clear understanding of these things. And then we'll be able to actually get that love out of the pages of Bhagavatam into your heart. Otherwise, it's impossible. Because if you don't know the language, how do you talk? If you go to China, if you don't know Chinese, then you can't communicate. It's impossible. And that is where Rupa Goswami wrote Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada said that's a law book of ISKCON. We have to know all these terms very nicely. So please read Nectar of Devotion and then you will understand what's the focal point. How do you translate love into philosophy? So does it make clear a little bit?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And you have to train your mind. That's very important. That is train your mind. That's super important. Okay, Prabhu, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, my friend.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu, for giving your time. I know this is, I think it's night in your place, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and thank you for giving another wonderful class. And we always appreciate your time, especially you are enlightening us with something special in every class. Not one thing, many things special. Thank you, Prabhu. Thanks everyone for joining. As all of you know that, Hare Krishna, that our classes are posted on our website, YouTube, and WhatsApp. Thank you everyone. And if you have any more questions, you can send the question directly to Prabhu, or you can send the questions to us, and we'll convey your question to Prabhu and get the answer for you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thanks everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.